Captain Lee Do-yun stared at the massive space station ahead of them. The Galactic Council's meeting place was bigger than Earth's moon. Ships from 12 different alien races floated around it like tiny insects. His own ship, the Harmony, looked small and weak next to them. "Captain, we're getting a signal from the station," said Lieutenant Kang Ji-woo from her seat at the controls. "Put it on screen," Do-yun replied. A tall blue creature with crystal-like skin appeared on the screen. Its voice was cold and bored. "Earth vessel, you are cleared to dock at Bay 77. Follow the guide beam. Do not deviate from the path." The blow. Screen went black before Do-hyun could respond. Dr. Park Min-hee looked up from her datapad. She was Earth's best expert on alien life. "Not very friendly, are they?" she said quietly. "They don't think we're worth being friendly to," said General Kim Ji-hoon. He was a tough old soldier who had fought in Earth's last war. "I've seen that. Look before. They think we're nothing." Do-hyun guided the Harmony into the docking bay. The bay was huge and filled with ships that used technology Earth could barely understand. Some ships looked like living creatures made of metal. Others seemed to be made of pure light. As they walked through the station, aliens stopped to stare at them. Some pointed at the humans and made sounds that might have been laughter. Others just looked at them with disgust or pity. The meeting room was enormous. 12 different alien races sat around a circular table. Each race looked completely different from the others. Some had multiple arms, others floated in the air, and a few seemed to be made of energy rather than solid matter. The blue crystal creature from before stood up. "I am Arbiter Veltar of the Crystalline Hegemony. I will conduct this evaluation." Do-hyun stepped forward. "I'm Captain Lee Do-hyun, representing Earth and humanity." Veltar looked at a glowing tablet. Yes, let us begin the standard tests. First, show us your most advanced weapon." General Ji-hoon activated a hologram showing Earth's newest laser cannon. The aliens looked at it for a moment, then several made those laughing sounds again. "Crude energy projection," Veltar said, making a note. "What about your psychic abilities? Can any of your species read minds or move objects with thought?" Dr. Min-hee shook her head. "No, we don't have those abilities." More laughter from around the table. One alien that looked like a giant spider spoke up. "No psychic powers at all? How do you communicate over long distances?" "We use radio waves and quantum communication devices," Minnie explained. The spider alien made a sound of disgust. "Mechanical communication. How primitive." The tests continued for hours. Each time the humans showed their technology or explained their abilities, the aliens seemed more and more unimpressed. Their spaceships were too slow. Their computers were too simple. Their medicine was basic. Their art was boring. Finally, Veltar put down his tablet. "The evaluation is complete. Humanity is classified as Category 5, primitive/non-threat. You will be granted limited trading rights in your local sector. You may trade basic materials for simple technologies. That is all." "Wait," Do-hyun said. "We'd like to learn more about the galaxy. Maybe we could help with something." Several aliens made amused sounds. A floating jellyfish-like creature spoke in a voice like singing crystals. "Help with what, little human? Your species has nothing we need. You are weak, slow, and have no special abilities. What could you possibly offer us?" Do-hyun felt his face get hot with anger, but he kept his voice calm. "We're good at solving problems. We adapt quickly to new situations." "Everyone thinks they are special," Veltar said with a dismissive wave. "You are no different from 1,000 other primitive species we have encountered. Accept your place and be grateful we allow you to trade with us at all." As the meeting ended, Do-hyun noticed something strange. While most of the aliens seemed amused or bored by humanity, a few looked nervous. Every time someone mentioned the Vorthak Empire, several aliens would glance at each other quickly. Dr. Min-hee noticed it too. She leaned close to Do-hyun as they walked back to their ship. "Did you see how they acted when the Vorthak came up in conversation?" "Yeah," Do-hyun whispered back. "Fear. Pure fear." General Ji-hoon was thinking about the weapons he had seen. "Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours. But I noticed something. All their weapons are designed for one specific type of fighting. Our weapons are more flexible. What do you mean? Minhee asked. Their laser weapons only work in space. Their psychic attacks only work on other psychic beings. Our weapons work anywhere, against anyone. We built them to adapt. Back on the Harmony, the three humans sat in the captain's cabin and talked quietly. So we're primitive and worthless, Do-hyun said. That's what they think. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Minhee said thoughtfully. If they don't think we're a threat, they won't pay attention to what we're really doing. Jihoon nodded. In war, being underestimated is sometimes better than being feared. The enemy makes mistakes when they think you're weak. Do-hyun looked out at the stars. I keep thinking about how scared they looked when someone mentioned the Vorthak. Who are the Vorthak? According to the files they gave us, the Vorthak Empire controls about a quarter of the galaxy, Minhee said, reading from her tablet. They're the most powerful military force known. Even the Galactic Council is afraid of them. But they're not part of the Council? Do-hyun asked. No. The Council exists partly to balance against Vorthak power. It's like a Cold War. Jihoon leaned back in his chair. So we have 12 alien races working together because they're all afraid of a 13th race that's stronger than all of them combined. That's about right, Minhee confirmed. Do-hyun made a decision. We're going to learn everything we can about this galaxy. Start with the Vorthak. I want to know why everyone is so afraid of them. And if they ask what we're doing, Jihoon asked. We tell them we're just primitive humans trying to learn about our betters, Do-hyun said with a slight smile. They'll believe it because they want to believe it. As the Harmony left the space station, none of the aliens paid attention to the small human ship. They had already forgotten about the primitive species from the small blue planet. This would turn out to be their first mistake. In the months that followed, human ships began exploring nearby systems. They traded simple materials for basic technology, just as the aliens expected. But they also listened, watched, and learned. They mapped trade routes, studied alien cultures, and slowly began to understand how the galaxy really worked. And everywhere they went, they heard whispers about the Vorthak Empire and saw the fear in alien eyes when that name was spoken. Captain Do-hyun was patient. Humans were good at being patient. They would watch and wait and learn. And when the time was right, the galaxy would discover what it really meant to underestimate humanity. But first, something unexpected was about to happen that would change everything. 6 months had passed since Earth's first meeting with the Galactic Council. Admiral Choi Sung-jin sat in his command chair aboard the new Earth Fleet flagship, watching his officers work. The humans had been busy, while the aliens thought they were just simple traders. Earth had built a dozen new ships and trained hundreds of new crew members. Admiral, called Lieutenant Kang Ji-woo from the sensor station, we're getting strange readings from the Vorthak sectors. What kind of strange? Seung-jin asked. All their communication signals just stopped, all at once. Every single Vorthak world went silent exactly 3 hours and 14 minutes ago. Seung-jin frowned. The Vorthak Empire had thousands of worlds across a huge section of space. They didn't all go quiet at the same time unless something big was happening. Get me Ambassador Yoon, he ordered. Ambassador Yoon Heron's face appeared on the main screen. She was at the Galactic Council station and looked worried. Admiral, are you seeing what we're seeing? If you mean the Vorthak going silent, yes, what's the Council saying? They're in complete panic, Yoon replied. Emergency sessions, closed meetings, ships flying everywhere. I've never seen them this scared. Before Seung-jin could reply, alarms started ringing throughout his ship. Lieutenant Ji-woo's voice was tight with shock. Admiral, you need to see this. The main screen changed to show a star map of Vorthak space. Where thousands of worlds should have been marked, there was nothing. Not just no signals, the worlds themselves were gone. That's impossible, Seung-jin whispered. Sir, we're getting similar reports from all our scout ships. Every Vorthak world, space station, and ship has vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. There's no debris, no radiation, nothing. Seung-jin stood up slowly. How do you make an entire Galactic Empire disappear? 2 days later, the Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Ambassador Yoon sat with representatives from all 12 member races. The mood was pure terror. Arbiter Veltar, who had been so confident and dismissive 6 months ago, now looked like he was about to break apart. His crystal skin was dim and cracked. "The situation is worse than we initially reported," he said, in a shaky voice. The giant spider alien, whose name was Thekvar, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Worse? How can it be worse? The Vorthak controlled a quarter of the galaxy and now they're gone." "Because we sent probe ships to investigate," Veltar continued. "The ships that reached former Vorthak space, they found something." He activated a hologram showing a probe ship's recording. The view showed empty space where a Vorthak world used to be. But as the probe got closer, strange readings appeared on its sensors. "There's something there," the floating jellyfish alien said. "But we can't see it. Our sensors detect mass, gravity, and energy signatures," Veltar explained. "But visual scans show nothing. It's as if the planets and ships are still there, but in a place we cannot perceive." Ambassador Yoon raised her hand. "May I ask a question?" Several aliens looked annoyed that the primitive human was speaking, but Veltar nodded. "Our ships have been in the area," Yoon said carefully. "We've detected similar readings, but our sensors can see a little more than yours." The room went silent. Thekvar leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "We can detect energy patterns that suggest the Vorthak weren't destroyed. They were moved, displaced to somewhere else." "Impossible," snapped a creature that looked like living metal. "No technology in the galaxy could move entire worlds." Yoon remained calm. "We're not saying they were moved by technology." The silence stretched longer. Finally, the ancient creature at the end of the table spoke. It was so old that no one remembered what species it belonged to. When it talked, everyone listened. "Tell them about the survivor," it said in a voice like grinding. Stone Veltar's crystal skin got even dimmer. 3 hours ago, one of our patrol ships found a Vorthak warrior drifting in space, alone in an escape pod. He's not well." "Bring him in," the ancient alien ordered. The Vorthak warrior was huge, even by alien standards. He stood 8 feet tall with thick armor and weapons that could level a city. But now he shook like a scared child. His eyes were wide and unfocused. "Tell them what you told us," Veltar said gently. The Vorthak's voice was barely a whisper. "They came from nowhere. No ships, no weapons we could see, just presence, intelligence, ancient and patient." "Who came?" Thekvar demanded. "The quiet ones, the Watchers. They spoke without words, moved without ships. They said we had grown too strong, too proud. They said it was time for us to rest." The warrior's hands trembled as he continued. "Our weapons did nothing. Our shields meant nothing. They reached out and touched our worlds, and suddenly we were somewhere else. Not dead, but not here. Existing, but not existing." "How did you escape?" Ambassador Yoon asked. For the first time, the warrior looked directly at her. "I didn't escape. They let me go. To deliver a message." "What message?" "That this has happened before. Will happen again. When any race grows too powerful, too threatening to the balance, the quiet ones come. They return things to the way they should be." The warrior suddenly focused on Yoon with sharp attention. "But they mentioned something else. They spoke of the small blue world. They said the quiet ones from there were different. Interesting." Every alien in the room turned to stare at Ambassador Yoon. She felt her heart start beating faster. "We're from the small blue world," she said carefully. The Vorthak warrior nodded slowly. "They know. The Watchers know about your kind. They said, your people have a gift that others lack, the gift of knowing when to stop." After the meeting, Yoon contacted Admiral Seungjin immediately. "We need to get our people together and figure out what just happened," she said. "Already on it," Seungjin replied. "I'm recalling all our ships. Whatever those things are that took the Vorthak, they know about us. Lieutenant Jiwoo looked up from her station. Admiral, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Every major power is mobilizing their fleets. They're scared of the power vacuum left by the Vorthak disappearance. And they're scared of whatever made the Vorthak disappear, Shungjin added. But apparently we're somehow special. The question is, special good or special bad? That night, as human ships gathered in secret locations throughout their sector, Captain Do-hyun met with his senior staff. The man who had been dismissed as primitive and worthless 6 months ago now commanded a small but growing fleet. So let me understand this, said General Ji-hoon. The galaxy's most powerful empire vanished without a trace. Something called the Watchers, or the Quiet Ones, took them away because they got too strong. And these Watchers specifically mentioned us. That about covers it, Do-hyun replied. Dr. Minhee looked at her research notes. There's something else. I've been analyzing the energy signatures our sensors detected. The displacement patterns are incredibly sophisticated. Whatever moved the Vorthak has technology so advanced that it might as well be magic. And they let us detect some of it when other alien sensors couldn't, Jiwoo pointed out. That can't be an accident. Do-hyun stared out at the stars. 6 months ago, humanity had been dismissed as weak and primitive. Now they were apparently the only species that had caught the attention of beings powerful enough to make entire empires disappear. I have a feeling, he said quietly, that being underestimated was just the beginning. Something much bigger is happening here, and we're right in the middle of it. None of them knew how right he was. Dr. Nam Soo-young stared at the quantum readings on her screen and rubbed her tired eyes. She had been working for 3 weeks straight, trying to understand what happened to the Vorthak Empire. The mathematics were giving her a headache. The energy patterns don't make sense, she muttered to herself. It's like they were folded out of normal spacetime, but the method is completely unknown. Captain Shin Yoonji walked into the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. Any progress? Maybe, Soo-young said, accepting the coffee gratefully. I think I know what happened to them, but not how or why. She pointed to a complex diagram on her screen. Look at this. The quantum signatures suggest the Vorthak weren't destroyed or moved to another location. They were shifted to a different dimensional phase. They still exist, but not in the same reality we occupy. Yoonji tried to understand. So they're alive but unreachable? Exactly. It's like taking a piece of paper and folding it so it exists in the same space but can't be touched. Incredibly advanced technology would be needed to do something like this. Or something that isn't technology at all, Yoonji said thoughtfully. Before Soo-young could ask what she meant, her communication device buzzed. Agent Oh Tae-hyung's face appeared on the small screen. He looked excited and worried at the same time. Doctor, Captain, you need to hear this. I'm at the former Vorthak research facility on Kepler 7. I found something in their computer systems. What kind of something? Yoonji asked. Records of their final weeks. They were scared. Really scared. And they were researching something they called dimensional predators. Soo-young leaned closer to the screen. Predators? Beings that exist outside normal space-time but can affect our reality. According to these files, the Vorthak detected them months ago. At first, they thought the readings were just sensor errors. Taehyung's image flickered as he moved through the abandoned facility. But then, they started finding evidence. Civilizations throughout galactic history that reached a certain level of power and then vanished without explanation. The Vorthak called it the pattern. How many civilizations, Yoonji asked. At least 7 major ones over the past 1,000,000 years. Each time, a dominant species would rise to control large sections of the galaxy. Then, when they reached a specific threshold of influence and technology, they would disappear overnight. Soo-young felt a chill run down her spine. What was the threshold? Control of more than 25% of galactic space, plus advanced dimensional manipulation technology, plus aggressive expansion policies. The Vorthak had just achieved all 3. Captain Yoonji was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Taehyung, send us everything you found, all of it. Already done, but there's more. I'm sending coordinates for a meeting. There's someone you need to talk to. 2 days later, Yunji's ship arrived at a hidden location deep in space. Waiting for them was another ship they didn't recognize. As they docked, an ancient alien walked onto their vessel. It moved slowly and seemed very, very old. "I am Elder Zix Thara," it said in a voice like whispers. "I have been waiting for humans to find me." Dr. Su-Yung looked puzzled. "Waiting for us specifically?" "Yes, your species has a quality that others lack. You ask the right questions." The elder moved to their viewing window and looked out at the stars. "I am old enough to remember the Great Vanishing before this one. The Koltheran Empire. They controlled 30% of the galaxy and had developed weapons that could destroy entire star systems." "What happened to them?" Yunji asked. "The same thing that happened to the Vorthak. The same thing that happened to the Nexari before them, and the Thought Builders before them. When any species becomes too powerful, too dominant, the pruners come." "Pruners?" "That is what I call them. Others have different names. They maintain balance in the galaxy by removing apex predators before they can consume everything." Agent Tae-hyung, who had arrived on the Elder's ship, spoke up. "But why haven't they come for the Galactic Council? 12 species working together could be seen as too powerful." Zixathera made a sound that might have been laughter. "Because the Council is weak. Divided. They argue and compete with each other. They are not efficient enough to be a real threat to galactic balance." "And humans?" Su-Yung asked quietly. The elder turned to look at her with eyes that held the wisdom of millennia. "Humans are fascinating. You have advanced far enough to be noticed, but you have not made the same mistakes as others." "What mistakes?" "You do not seek to dominate through force alone. You adapt instead of demanding that others adapt to you. Most importantly, you seem to understand that true power sometimes means choosing not to use power." Captain Yunji felt a strange mix of pride and fear. "So we're safe from these pruners?" "For now. But that could change. If humanity grows too aggressive, too dominant, too convinced of its own superiority." The elder's voice trailed off meaningfully. "Doctor," Su-Yung looked at her quantum readings again. "Elder Zixthara, is there a way to communicate with the pruners? To understand what they want?" "Perhaps. But it would be dangerous. They do not communicate as we understand it. They exist partially outside our reality. Contact with them changes you." Over the following weeks, the human investigation team worked around the clock. They mapped the locations where previous Great Vanishings had occurred. They studied the common factors that triggered pruner attention. They analyzed humanity's current position in the galactic power structure. Their conclusions were disturbing. "We're in a very narrow safe zone," Commander Ryumirai explained during a secure briefing with Earth's leadership. "Too primitive and we get dismissed or conquered by others. Too advanced and we get pruned." President Kim Dae looked at the reports with growing concern. "How close are we to crossing the line?" "Unknown," Mirai replied. "The pruners seem to judge based on multiple factors: military power, territorial control, technological advancement, and what the elder called aggressive intent." "And if we cross the line?" Dr. Su-Yung answered this time. "Based on what happened to the Vorthak, we get shifted to a dimensional phase where we still exist but cannot affect normal reality. Essentially, we become galactic ghosts." The room was quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, President Dai spoke. "So our choice is to remain weak and risk being conquered by others, or become strong and risk being pruned by cosmic entities." "There might be a third option," Agent Tae-hyung said. "The elder mentioned that humans are different. We adapt instead of dominate. Maybe there's a way to grow stronger without triggering the pruners." "How?" "By becoming indispensable instead of dominant. By being the species that helps maintain balance rather than the species that disrupts it." Captain Yunji nodded slowly. "Instead of trying to rule the galaxy, we become its caretakers." "It's a dangerous path," Elder Zixthara had warned them. "The pruners are not easily fooled. They can sense intention as much as action. You would need to genuinely commit to galactic balance, not just pretend to. As the meeting ended, each human leader faced the same realization. Humanity stood at a crossroads. One path led to domination and eventual pruning. Another led to continued weakness and possible extinction. But maybe, just maybe, there was a third path that no other species had been wise enough to try. The question was whether humans were truly different enough to walk it successfully. Professor Lee Kyungmin brushed ancient dust off the carved stone tablet and smiled with excitement. After months of searching through ruins on dead worlds, she had finally found what she was looking for, evidence of the civilizations that came before. "Captain Bei, you need to see this," she called to her team leader. Captain Bei Sunho walked over carefully. The ruins they were exploring had belonged to the Nexari Empire, which had vanished 3 million years ago. Everything was fragile and dangerous. "What did you find?" he asked. "Proof," Kyungmin said, pointing at symbols carved into the stone. "These markings tell the same story we found on the Koltharan worlds and the Thought Builder sites. They all knew something was coming for them." She translated the ancient text. It says, "When the builders grow too proud, the shadows come to teach humility. 7 times has this happened. 7 times will it happen again. Only the wise learn to limit themselves." Bei studied the carved symbols. So they knew about the pattern. They knew that dominant civilizations get pruned. "More than that," Kyungmin said. "Look at this section. They tried to fight back." The next set of carvings showed images of great battles, weapons that could destroy stars, armies that numbered in the billions, technology that bent reality itself. "They threw everything they had at the pruners," Kyungmin continued. "And it didn't matter. The next carving shows them being folded out of existence just like the Vorthak." Commander Ryumirai's voice came through their communication devices. "Professor Captain, we need you back on the ship. We're getting some very strange readings." When they returned to their vessel, the entire crew was gathered around the main display screen. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting in front of them. "What are we looking at?" Bei asked. "Contact," Miri said simply. "Something is trying to communicate with us." The twisting space began to form patterns. Not quite shapes, not quite language, but something that human minds could almost understand. Dr. Song Yuna, their quantum physicist, was taking readings with every instrument they had. The energy patterns are incredibly complex. It's like someone is writing messages in the fabric of space-time itself. Slowly, impossibly, words began to form in their minds. Not heard, not seen, but somehow understood. Humans of the small blue. World. We have watched your questions, your seeking, we will speak. The voice was ancient beyond measure. It felt like the sound of galaxies being born and dying. Captain Bei stepped forward, even though there was nothing physical to face. "Who are you?" "We are the curator. We maintain the garden." "Garden?" "The galaxy. Life must grow, but not so much that it consumes all. Balance is required." Professor Kyungmin found her voice. "You're the ones who make civilizations disappear. When necessary, when they grow too hungry, too proud, too dangerous to others. And you're going to do the same to us?" The presence paused, and somehow they could feel its consideration. "You are different. Other species seek to dominate, to consume, to expand without limit. You ask questions instead." Dr. Song stepped forward. "What makes us different enough to talk to instead of just removing us? Your species has a rare quality. You can grow without destroying, advance without conquering. Most cannot." Commander Mirai asked the question they were all thinking. How do we know if we're staying on the right path? How do we know when we're getting too dangerous? You will know because you ask the question. Species that become too dangerous stop asking. They assume they are right to expand. The curator's presence began to fade slightly, but its words continued. "We have watched 7 great prunings. Each time the dominant species believed they were special, believed they were different, they were not." "But we are?" Bei asked. "Perhaps time will tell, but you show promise." "What kind of promise?" the promise of becoming gardeners rather than weeds. After the contact ended, the human team sat in stunned silence. Finally, Professor Kyungmin spoke. Did that cosmic entity just offer us a job? Back on Earth, President Kim Dae called an emergency meeting of the Global Council. The room was filled with humanity's best military leaders, scientists, and philosophers. So let me understand this, she said. These curator beings have been managing galactic evolution for millions of years by removing civilizations that get too powerful. Admiral Park Jin-won nodded. That's correct. And they're suggesting that humans might be suitable to help with this process. Help how? Dr. Song, who had returned from the contact mission, answered. By becoming enforcers of galactic balance. Instead of trying to dominate other species, we would work to prevent any species from becoming too dominant. General Ji-hoon, now much older but still sharp, leaned forward. That's a huge responsibility, and it puts us in direct conflict with any species that wants to expand aggressively. It also protects us from being pruned ourselves, pointed out Commander Mirai. If we're working for galactic balance instead of human dominance, we don't trigger their removal protocols. President Daye looked around the room. Opinions? It's risky, said Admiral Park. We'd be making enemies of any species that wants to grow beyond their current limits. We'd also be making allies of species that are threatened by aggressive expansion, Dr. Song countered. And we'd be learning from the curators, Professor Kyungmin added. Beings with millions of years of knowledge about galactic civilizations. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humans should focus on their own development and stay out of galactic politics. Others believed this was humanity's chance to become a major galactic power without risking extinction. Finally, President Dai called for quiet. There's something else to consider, she said. Right now, the galaxy is in chaos because the Vorthak disappeared. The remaining powers are fighting over territory. Smaller species are being conquered or destroyed. Maybe the galaxy needs someone to restore balance. And if we make the wrong choice, General Ji-hoon asked, then we either get conquered by aggressive species or pruned by the curators, Daya replied. Those seem to be our options anyway. Agent Oh Tae-hyung, who had been quiet during most of the debate, finally spoke up. I've been monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The situation is getting worse. 3 minor civilizations have already been completely absorbed by stronger neighbors. The crystalline hegemony and the spider clans are building up for a major war. How long before the chaos spreads to our sector? President Dai asked. Maybe 2 years, maybe less. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. So we're running out of time, Dai said. We need to decide. Do we try to become galactic peacekeepers or do we prepare for war? Dr. Song looked at her notes from the curator contact. There's one more thing. The curator said we show promise as gardeners rather than weeds. But it also said it's watched other species that thought they were special. We could be wrong about ourselves. Then we'd better make sure we're not, President Dai said firmly. If we're going to try this, we need to be absolutely certain we can stay true to the goal of balance rather than dominance. As the meeting ended, each person in the room understood that humanity was about to make the most important decision in its history. The choice would determine not just their own fate, but the fate of countless other species across the galaxy, and they had to make it soon before the choice was taken away from them entirely. The emergency message reached President Kim Dae at 3 in the morning. She rushed to the command center still wearing her sleeping clothes, knowing that nothing good ever happened when alarms rang in the middle of the night. What's the situation? She asked Admiral Park Jin-won. War, he said simply. The crystalline hegemony just launched a full-scale attack on the Spider Clan territories. The floating cities have allied with 3 minor species and are pushing into former Vorthak space. Everyone is grabbing whatever they can. Dai looked at the galactic map showing fleet movements across hundreds of star systems. Casualties? Billions already dead. Entire worlds being bombarded. It's going to get much worse. Dr. Song Yuna hurried into the command center carrying a tablet full of data. Madam President, we're getting emergency communications from over 30 species. They're all asking the same thing, which is, They want to know if Earth will help them. Word is spread that humans have some kind of special relationship with the forces that took the Vorthak. Everyone thinks we might be able to stop this war. President Dai felt the weight of the entire galaxy settling on her shoulders. And can we? Maybe, said Commander Ryu Mirai, joining the group. But only if we're willing to reveal our true capabilities and risk drawing the curator's attention. For months, humanity had been secretly building up their fleet and technology while maintaining their image as primitive traders. They now had ships that could compete with any galactic power and weapons that used principles no other species understood. But using them would announce to the galaxy that humans were far more advanced than they pretended to be. There's something else, Dr. Song said. I've been monitoring the dimensional readings where the Vorthak disappeared. The energy signatures are getting stronger. What does that mean? I think the curator is preparing to do something. Maybe another pruning if the war gets out of control. President Dai walked to the viewing window and looked out at Earth's blue oceans. 6 months ago, her biggest worry had been trade negotiations with alien merchants. Now she had to decide the fate of galactic civilization. Get me a secure channel. To all department heads, she ordered. It's time to make the choice. Within an hour, every major human leader was connected to the emergency conference. Military commanders, scientists, diplomats, and philosophers all waited for their president to speak. The galaxy is tearing itself apart, Dai began. Billions are dying, and it's going to get worse. We can either stay hidden and hope the chaos doesn't reach us, or we can step forward and try to stop it. General Ji-hoon, now very old but still sharp, spoke first. If we reveal our true strength, there's no going back. Every species will see us as either a threat or a potential ally. We'll be forced to take sides, or we could become the side that others join, suggested Ambassador Yoon Heron. The side that stands for peace instead of conquest. Admiral Park looked at his fleet reports. We have the military strength to make a difference. Our ships are faster and more flexible than anything else in the galaxy, but we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Dr. Song had a different perspective. It's not about military strength. It's about offering something no one else can offer, a way to end the fighting without anyone losing face. What kind of way? President Dai asked. A new system. Instead of letting the strongest species dominate, we create a structure where balance is maintained, where aggressive expansion is prevented before it starts wars. Captain Shin Yunji, speaking from her deep space monitoring station, added her voice to the debate. The curator is definitely preparing for something. I'm reading massive energy buildups in areas where previous prunings occurred. If this war continues, I think we're going to see another great vanishing. The room fell quiet as everyone considered this. Finally, Professor Lee Kyung-min spoke. In all my research into previous galactic civilizations, I found one constant. Every time a great empire fell, the smaller species suffered the most. If we don't act, countless innocent civilizations will be destroyed. President Dai made her decision. We're going to try. We're going to step forward as galactic peacekeepers and try to end this war. But we're going to do it in a way that shows we're not seeking dominance for ourselves. How? Admiral Park asked. By offering to give up something important. By showing that we're willing to limit our own power in exchange for galactic peace. 3 days later, every major species in the galaxy received the same message from Earth. The transmission reached warships in the middle of battles and government leaders in emergency meetings. President Dai appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds. She spoke calmly and clearly. People of the galaxy, I am Kim Dai, President of Earth and representative of humanity. We know you are at war. We know billions are dying. We want to offer a solution. The message continued as images showed human fleets moving to positions throughout the galaxy, not attacking but clearly present and clearly powerful. For months you have believed humans to be primitive and weak. We allowed you to believe this because it served our purposes. But we are not weak and we are not primitive. Human ships appeared near major battle zones, their advanced technology clearly visible, weapons that could destroy entire fleets, shields that could protect whole planets, ships that moved faster than anything else in known space. We could use this power to conquer, to build our own empire, to become the next dominant force in the galaxy. But we choose not to. The message showed human ships moving between opposing fleets not to attack but to separate them. Instead, we offer to become galactic peacekeepers. We will prevent any species, including ourselves, from becoming too powerful. We will maintain the balance that keeps smaller civilizations safe. President Dai paused to let this sink in. But we will not do this as conquerors or rulers. We will do it as servants of galactic stability. We propose a new galactic accord where no single species can control more than 15% of galactic space, where aggressive expansion is met with immediate response, where the strong protect the weak instead of consuming them. The most shocking part came next. To prove our commitment, humanity will limit our own expansion to our current territory. We will place monitoring devices on our own worlds to prove we are not violating the accords we propose. We will submit to the same restrictions we ask others to accept. Across the galaxy, weapons fell silent as species tried to understand what the humans were proposing. We do not ask you to trust us because we are strong. We ask you to trust us because we choose to limit our strength. The response was immediate and chaotic. Some species were suspicious, others were grateful. A few were angry that their expansion plans had been disrupted. But the curator's response was the one that mattered most. That night, as President Dai sat in her office reviewing reports from across the galaxy, space itself began to bend outside. Her window, the ancient presence, made itself known once more. Interesting choice, humans of the small blue world. Was it the right choice? Daya asked the cosmic entity. Time will tell. But you have shown wisdom that others lacked. You choose to serve rather than rule. And the war? Ending. Most species accept your proposal. Those that do not will learn. President Daya understood. The curator would handle species that refuse to accept the new order. What happens now? Now you prove that your choice was genuine, that humans can maintain balance without becoming what they fight against. Over the following months, the new galactic accord took shape. Human fleets positioned themselves throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors but as neutral peacekeepers. When conflicts arose, human mediators helped resolve them. When species tried to expand too aggressively, human ships would arrive to enforce the limits. It wasn't easy. Some species tested the limits. A few tried to build secret weapons or hidden fleets. But the combination of human monitoring and curator oversight kept the galaxy stable. Most importantly, humanity kept its promise. They limited their own expansion, accepted monitoring of their activities, and focused on maintaining balance rather than building an empire. The Vorthak Empire was eventually restored from their dimensional exile, but under strict limits on their power. They became productive members of the galactic community instead of its dominators. Years later, as Ambassador Yoon Heron walked through the new Galactic Council chambers where humans sat alongside dozens of other species as equals, rather than rulers, she reflected on how far they had come. Earth had been judged weak and primitive. Then they had been feared as potentially dangerous. Finally, they had chosen to become something no other species had managed. Powerful enough to maintain peace, wise enough to know when not to use their power. The galaxy was far from perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve. But for the first time in millions of years, it was a galaxy where the strong protected the weak instead of consuming them. And in the depths of space, ancient entities that had once prepared for another great pruning, instead watched with something that might have been approval, as the small blue world's children kept their promise to serve rather than rule. Humanity had found their place in the cosmos not through conquest, but through the wisdom to know that true strength sometimes meant choosing to be weak.